Welcome to another episode of SonicScript, where we delve into the depths of human experiences and emotions. Today, we're going to explore a feeling that is universal, yet often misunderstood: loneliness. In an era where we are more connected than ever before, an increasing number of us feel isolated. In the UK, 60% of 18 to 34-year-olds often feel lonely, and in the US, 46% of the entire population regularly experiences loneliness. It's a paradox of our time. We live in the most connected era in human history, yet an unprecedented number of us feel alone. It's important to distinguish between being alone and feeling lonely. They are not the same. You can be alone and feel blissful, or be surrounded by friends and feel lonely. Loneliness is a subjective experience. If you feel lonely, you are lonely. Contrary to popular belief, loneliness doesn't just affect those who lack social skills or don't know how to behave around others. Studies have shown that social skills make virtually no difference in adult loneliness. Loneliness can affect anyone, regardless of their money, fame, power, beauty, social skills, or personality. It's part of our biology. Our bodies respond to loneliness in the same way they respond to hunger. Just as hunger makes us pay attention to our physical needs, loneliness makes us pay attention to our social needs. Our bodies care about our social needs because, for millions of years, they were a great indicator of our survival chances. Our ancestors were rewarded by natural selection for collaboration and forming connections with each other. Our brains evolved to recognize what others thought and felt, and to form and sustain social bonds. Being social became part of our biology. We were born into groups of 50 to 150 people, which we usually stayed with for the rest of our lives. Being together meant survival. Being alone meant death. But as we began to build a new world for ourselves, these mechanisms for keeping us connected started to falter. The loneliness epidemic we see today really started in the late Renaissance. Western culture began to focus on the individual. Intellectuals moved away from the collectivism of the Middle Ages, and Protestant theology stressed individual responsibility. This trend accelerated during the Industrial Revolution as people left their villages and fields to enter factories. Communities that had existed for hundreds of years began to dissolve, while cities grew. Today, we move vast distances for new jobs, love, and education, and leave our social net behind. We meet fewer people in person, and we meet them less often than in the past. In the US, the mean number of close friends dropped from 3 in 1985 to 2 in 2011. Most people stumble into chronic loneliness by accident. You reach adulthood and become busy with work, university, romance, kids, and Netflix. There's just not enough time. The most convenient and easy thing to sacrifice is time with friends, until you wake up one day and realize that you feel isolated, that you yearn for close relationships. But it's hard to find close connections as adults, and so loneliness can become chronic. While humans feel pretty great about things like iPhones and spaceships, our bodies and minds are fundamentally the same they were 50,000 years ago. We are still biologically fine-tuned to being with each other. Large-scale studies have shown that the stress that comes from chronic loneliness is among the most unhealthy things we can experience as humans. It makes you age quicker. It makes diseases like cancer and Alzheimer's advance faster. Your immune system gets weaker. Loneliness is twice as deadly as obesity, and as deadly as smoking a pack of cigarettes a day. The most dangerous thing about it is that once it becomes chronic, it can become self-sustaining. Physical and social pain use common mechanisms in your brain. Both feel like a threat, and so social pain leads to immediate and defensive behavior when it's inflicted on you. When loneliness becomes chronic, your brain goes into self-preservation mode. It starts to see danger and hostility everywhere. But that's not all. Some studies found that when you're lonely, your brain is much more receptive and alert to social signals, while at the same time it gets worse at interpreting them correctly. You pay more attention to others, but you understand them less. The part of your brain that recognizes faces gets out of tune and becomes more likely to categorize neutral faces as hostile, which makes it distrustful of others. Loneliness makes you assume the worst about others' intentions towards you. Because of this perceived hostile world, you can become more self-centered to protect yourself, which can make you appear more cold, unfriendly, and socially awkward than you really are. If loneliness has become a strong presence in your life, The first thing you can do is to try to recognize the vicious cycle you may be trapped in. It usually goes something like this. An initial feeling of isolation leads to feelings of tension and sadness, which makes you focus your attention selectively on negative interactions with others. This makes your thoughts about yourself and others more negative, which then changes your behavior. You begin to avoid social interaction, which leads to more feelings of isolation. This cycle becomes more severe and harder to escape each time. Loneliness makes you sit far away from others in class, not answer the phone when friends call, decline invitations until the invitations stop. Each and every one of us has a story about ourselves, and if your story becomes that people exclude you, others pick up on that, and so the outside world can become the way you feel about it. This is often a slow, creeping process that takes years and can end in depression, and a mental state that prevents connections even if you yearn for them. The first thing you can do to escape it is to accept that loneliness is a totally normal feeling and nothing to be ashamed of. Literally, everybody feels lonely at some point in their life. It's a universal human experience. You can't eliminate or ignore a feeling until it goes away magically, but you can accept that you feel it and get rid of its cause. You can self-examine what you focus your attention on and check if you are selectively concentrating on negative things. Was this interaction with a colleague really negative, or was it really neutral or even positive? What was the actual content of an interaction? What did the other person say? And did they say something bad, or did you add extra meaning to their words? Maybe another person was not really reacting negatively, but just short on time. Then, there are your thoughts about the world. Are you assuming the worst about others' intentions? Do you enter a social situation and have already decided how it will go? Do you assume others don't want you around? Are you trying to avoid being hurt and not risking opening up? And if so, can you try to give others the benefit of the doubt? Can you just assume that they're not against you? Can you risk being open and vulnerable again? And lastly, your behavior. Are you avoiding opportunities to be around others? Are you looking for excuses to decline invitations? Or are you pushing others away preemptively to protect yourself? Are you acting as if you're getting attacked? Are you really looking for new connections, or have you become complacent with your situation? Of course, every person and situation is unique and different, and just introspection alone might not be enough. If you feel unable to solve your situation by yourself, please try to reach out and get professional help. It's not a sign of weakness, but of courage. However we look at loneliness, as a purely individual problem that needs solving to create more personal happiness, or as a public health crisis, it is something that deserves more attention. Humans have built a world that's nothing short of amazing, and yet none of the shiny things we've made is able to satisfy or substitute our fundamental biological need for connection. Most animals get what they need from their physical surroundings. We get what we need from each other, and we need to build our artificial human world based on that. Let's try something together. Let's reach out to someone today, regardless if you feel a little bit lonely or if you want to make someone else's day better. Maybe write a friend you haven't spoken to in a while. Call a family member who's become estranged. Invite a work buddy for a coffee, or just go to something you're usually too afraid or too lazy to go to, like a D&D event or a sports club. Everybody's different, so you know what's a good fit for you. Maybe nothing will come of it, and that's okay. Don't do this with any expectations. The goal is just to open up a bit, to exercise your connection muscles so they can grow stronger over time, or to help others exercise them. We want to recommend two of the books we read while researching this episode. Emotional First Aid by Guy Winch, a book that addresses, among other topics, how to deal with loneliness in a way that we found helpful and actionable, and Loneliness, Human Nature, and the Need for Social Connection by John Cacioppo and William Patrick, an entertaining and scientific exploration as to why we experience loneliness on a biological level, how it's spread in society, and what science has to say about how to escape it. Links for both books are in the episode description. Thank you for joining us on this journey into understanding loneliness.